Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. The Republic Media Network has the largest presence on the ground in Ukraine. Our reporters and journalists, our video journalists have been bringing you the stories of horror, the nature of the invasion. We've been reporting from various sites which have been bombed, where there have been massacres like Bucha. And this afternoon, I'm joined on the 43rd day of the Russian invasion of Ukraine by President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who is speaking exclusively to the Republic Media Network. First of all, on behalf of all our viewers, President Zelenskyy, thank you very much for giving us time amidst your extremely busy and tight schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnab, and thank you to the Republic TV. It is an opportunity for me to talk to ordinary people through your TV channel, to talk to the people of your wonderful nation, because in this way our ordinary people can protect and defend ourselves by showing what is happening to us, but what Russians are doing against us. So thank you, and thank your journalists, the journalists of Republic TV and the other journalists who are working in Ukraine and informing and spreading the true information.
Thank you very much. President Zelenskyy, I want to come to the issue of Bucha. We have seen the body bags. Our Republic reporters were documenting from the mass graves. Our reporters were there. I know you said that Bucha is one of many. Now, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov says that this was a fake attack which was staged. They have even floated a human shield argument. President Zelenskyy, what is your response to this narrative that Russia is taking to the world on Bucha?
Я можу відповісти вам і вашому народу.
I can tell you and your people, I'm not ready to have any answer to Minister Lavrov, saying that the situation in Bucha was a fake. Well, look at the rhetorics of the person who is considered as the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Russia. That's a great status, an important status. Throwing up fakes, it's not the steps of his level. The politics of Russian Federation is to consider that we don't have an independence and we don't have a sovereignty. They think that Ukraine is a fake. And I think this is mentioned somewhere in their public rhetorics. So saying that to a person without ear, who's not ready to listen to any information apart from their own, I can talk to people with heart, with understanding, with wisdom, with brains, that you cannot live like that. You cannot take lives of people just because you want so in a civilized world. That's why talking to you, talking to this large audience of a large nation, 400 million people, as you've mentioned before this interview, are watching us. And you know, even a single person would be able to hear us. I would tell you the same words, because my greatest interest is in lives of every citizen. Unfortunately, we have lost thousands of citizens, and now 400 million of people would understand what is happening in our country with a population of around 40 million. That's one of the largest countries in the European continent. What Russian soldiers are doing in Bucha, they did the same in Irpin, in Bucha. These are small cities around the capital city of Kiev. There's this situation which is pretty similar. Unfortunately, the situation is very tragic. We still don't have full information. There's just cities without the populations that are killed or tortured or being buried, or part of the people, women and children, all those who did not left in those cities. They were evacuated, but still there's nothing there. But I believe they will return. Saying what this person has said, particularly the fake, of course, they won't be able to use the information that the journalists are spreading. They've created a lot of cities and situations like in Bucha.
It must be difficult.
I mean, you could have destroyed.
Yes, sir.
But you can't destroy the city.
Yes. Mr. President, will you talk to Russia after Bucha? The Russian foreign minister says you're not serious about the negotiations. He said the Bucha massacre, what you're saying, is aimed to spoil or torpedo the ongoing negotiations. Will you continue to talk to Russia even after Bucha? Because you said the desire for talks, there is not much desire for the talks right now. After Bucha, will you continue to talk to the Russians?
Ви знаєте, я думаю, що у нас
I think that there is no other willingness but to put an end to this war. Before this large-scale invasion on the 24th of February and throughout all these 8 years, believe me, the same willingness remained. When I've become a president, the willingness was always the same. We want to put an end to this war. This war is on our territory only. It's not on the territory of Russia and Ukraine. It's only on our territory. It's the war between Russia and Ukraine, but on our territory. So I'm interested in putting an end to this war, in returning the citizens of Ukraine from other countries in order to restore the economic activity and economic stability. And even more important, I don't want to have the shelling. I don't want losing the citizens of Ukraine. In addition, apart from this strong position that we have thanks to the armed forces of Ukraine, thanks to the weapons, we are clearly demonstrating that every day, and thanks to the diplomatic efforts, we are ready to conduct negotiations with the leader of the Russian Federation, despite how difficult it might be after Bucha, after many different events. I know that there are many people in Ukraine who would be against conversations with President Putin. I know this because we can see what they are doing, what they have done in the territory of Ukraine. But as the president, I want to put an end to this war and to search for any possible steps towards that.
Just as I was coming to the interview about 20 minutes back, President Zelenskyy, Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, said that Ukraine has proposed to discuss Crimea and Donbas. And he said that we are rejecting the Ukrainian proposal. What is your proposal which Russia is rejecting?
По-перше, хочу вам сказати, що будь-яку реакцію на
Any response to any words of the Russian foreign minister should be done by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. That is his level. That's not my level to respond to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia. I'm ready to respond to any words of the President of Russian Federation. Then I will be more serious about this. That's first aspect. Now, second aspect, I'm absolutely frank in saying that we are ready to talk about the territory of Ukraine. We're ready to talk about the temporarily occupied Crimea and Donbas. And even if there is no decision at this moment, the dialogue will bring some possible solutions to this situation. So I'd like to confirm once again that I'm ready to discuss any topic, but I would like to do that with the president of Russia.
Just following from that, President Zelensky, you say that you're willing to discuss with President Vladimir Putin all issues in great detail. How likely are these talks? Are you willing to speak directly or meet directly with President Putin? Have direct negotiations with him, one-on-one?
Да, я готовий зустрічатися з президентом.
Yes, yes, I'm ready to meet with the president of Russia. It is on him that the further attack and on Ukraine depends. Speaking on the issues, all the issues are topical. Stopping the war, Crimea and Donbass, all of those are priority questions for me. So I'm ready at any moment. And the time is not about the timing, so to say. The faster we will meet, the less would be the amount of casualties on both sides. And I clearly understand that Russia has a slightly different attitude. As you know, the Russian soldiers, they are being abandoned on the streets, and our medics took some of them, and they even offered some medical assistance to them. But the faster will be the meeting, the better would be.
That's a very significant statement from you, President Zelensky. I also believe that the earlier that there is a direct meeting between you and President Putin, there's a greater chance for peace. In 2019, you and President Putin, you met for 9 hours in Paris, but that summit was brokered by France and Germany. Would a meeting between you and President Putin need mediators, external mediators like last time?
На сьогодні немає ніякого.
Currently, there is no mediation. Currently, we are interested in the security guarantors, and we can see leading countries among those security guarantees, those who can provide us with some security guarantees. We didn't have them in the past, unfortunately, but I am sure that we will have them in future. Among the security guarantees, there could be United States, UK, Poland, Germany, France, and we're offering China to be a security guarantee. We're offering Turkey to be security guarantor as well. And I think India, if there will be a willingness to join the list of the security guarantors for Ukraine, then of course we would be happy to invite India, because India is a very powerful state in the world. Speaking on the Normandy format.
Yes, please continue.
Yes.
No, please continue.
Speaking on the Normandy format, that was the format of 4 countries, France, Germany, Ukraine, and Russia. And that is why we had a meeting in between 4 of the leaders. And they were the agreements reached before my presidentship. And since I was a responsible person, I've continued discussing the peaceful settlement. Unfortunately, the Normandy format did not allow to settle the situation, and not everything was successful with regards to the Normandy format. Of course, there were some successes, particularly the exchange of POWs, prisoners of war, and we've managed to liberate over 150 people. They returned home alive, and they were living in inhuman conditions. We've also agreed on the ceasefire regime, and for 5 or 6 months that ceasefire existed, and there was minimum amount of casualties during the ceasefire, so that was also an advantage. Besides, there was a demining of certain areas along the contact line, and that's why I think there were some right steps made, but there were no continuation of those steps. And you know what was the end. Yes. This format was frozen, we didn't have a meeting for a long period of time, and then there was a full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine that you can see and you know all about right now.
President Zelensky, is it necessary to have a security guarantee to have a one-on-one meeting with President Putin, or can you have a meeting with President Putin, a negotiation with President Putin, even if you don't have a security guarantee?
Я вважаю, що це паралель.
I think this could be a parallel processes, and we should not delay or should not slow down the dialogue by any meetings. We know that some of the countries are ready to extend the security guarantees to Ukraine. It would be better before the meeting with the president to have some clear agreements with regard to security guarantees and which countries are ready to take some commitments. Yes, it would be better to have those preliminary agreements and then to have a meeting with the Russian Federation, so that not to have just a meeting for the sake of the meeting, but there would be already some specifics. In the same time, we are ready to have this process in a parallel format so that we would not wait until having a meeting in a year or 2 years. We don't want the war to continue for that long.
Yes, absolutely.
Також знати, шановний Арнаб, що у будь-якій війні є
In
декілька.
any war, there are a number of parties. So it would be also important that Russian Federation would be willing to have those negotiations. We would not be asking them or pleading them for conversations on negotiations for a period of 3 years. I have asked for having a meeting. I've asked through many leaders of the world, and I raised the need for being a civilized and modern people. We are not solving our own destiny. It's not the question about family. The country is not our property. Even Russia has a different understanding. In my understanding, this is not our property. We are selected by the people. We are representing the people. And whenever we are representing the people and their wishes, they're not willing, they're not wishing to have this war. So I would like to have this meeting as soon as possible, although it didn't take place. Currently, it's the peak situation in this war. There's the use of cruise missiles, shelling, the people are dying. That's why I think both parties should be willing to have the meeting, because Russia would face an isolation, utter international isolation, because the whole world is seeing the evidence of those tortures and the outcomes of the war.
Absolutely. I think your statement is very significant, and I think what you're coming from a position of geostrategic pragmatism, that if you have a security guarantee, the chances of the negotiation being successful are greater. My next question, President Zelensky, is about the situation in Odessa, Mariupol regions. Now, the Russians are concentrating their attack on Mariupol, and they want to take over control of Odessa. The Russians want to control your eastern and southern corridors. Is the control of your southern ports up for negotiation, President Zelensky?
What was the ports? The situation with the ports? Unfortunately, unfortunately, the ports in those cities that are occupied, particularly the Berdyansk is occupied, and the corridor of the southern region of our country has been occupied, as you know. Mariupol is blocked as well, and nobody is able to use the port, neither us nor they, because there's constant combat operations Melitopol, the city of Melitopol, is also blocked. You were absolutely right to mention this is the southern regions of our country, and we understand that even before the war, Russia has been constantly blocking the coastline of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov, and they were conducting joint exercises. They were blocking the commercial routes as well, in order to clearly demonstrate who's the one who takes decision in this region. They were blocking our territory. And of course, we clearly understand what was the objective for that, in order to stop the commerce, because we are exporting a lot of agricultural products. So they wanted to have a damage of our economy. And even in the situation that we didn't have a war, they still did this. Now they have an accumulation of the forces and accumulation of military equipment in the south and in the east of our country, in the Kharkiv region. This city of Kharkiv has been blocked from two directions, but still we are in control of the situation in Kharkiv. There's constant combats in the city of Izum, but we are holding our positions and we're not making any step backward.
Are you at any point now or in the future, is Ukraine willing to give up Odessa, Mariupol, Kharkiv, any of these towns? Or will the war continue till you get back complete control of these towns and these corridors, especially in the south?
In any case, we will fight for all those cities. And today we have full control of the Odessa, and it's not being occupied. Currently, there is a very difficult situation in Mariupol. And of course, we will struggle until we will be able to restore the territorial integrity. That's a big mistake, what is happening currently in the south. In those cities where the occupation forces have entered, and you know that they're killing local authorities because people are not willing to accept other authorities, they're not willing to give up their local leaders, they're throwing them to basement or just torture them. We've lost a lot of the local leaders, the mayors, who are, according to our legislation, are elected by the people. It's not that the president is appointing them. That's why the people are responding in that way. They've elected them. They're not accepting anyone who's simply appointed. So that's the struggle that we are having.
President Zelenskyy, if the Russians tell you to accept the status quo as of now, will you accept it? Or will you want a status quo ante? Will you want the situation to go back to what it was before the invasion, before the 24th of February?
Look, today we are ready to say that at least they should withdraw to those positions that they had in the beginning of the 24th of February. And those cities that are currently occupied by Russians, we will not leave them occupied.
Okay. Yesterday, you told the UN Security Council that you either act immediately or dissolve yourself altogether. The Pope also spoke about the impotency of the UN. What specifically can the UN do for Ukraine?
Well, UN can do a lot. Because simply using the words, "we are concerned," is not enough to stop the war. We feel only the words and this support in the words. They have to be courageous. They have to be powerful. If we're talking about the isolation of the Russian Federation or different international organizations, there should be an isolation, or just having meetings with them, sitting with them at a single table and talking to them on the need to settle the issue, and repeating the words concern and concern. We have heard this word for over 8 years, and unfortunately, not too many of our citizens survived after them raising their concerns. You need to establish the isolation against Russian Federation, and there are a number of leaders of the world who can start a full-scale war in different regions. That's something that may happen. We know how many leaders who might be volunteering to do so. That's why there has to be a diplomatic response to the diplomacy of Russian Federation. If you don't know how to do this, let's establish a format. Let's establish some powerful steps to have a response to Russia. We should not be using the words of concerns. We should be using the words of the ultimatum, because they are using only the ultimatum in their conversation with us and the whole world.
Well, yes, absolutely, I agree with you. In 2011, the UN Security Council had approved a no-fly zone over Libya. You asked the NATO for a no-fly zone, they are rejecting it. Why don't you ask the UN bodies to provide a no-fly zone? Is that possible?
Well, speaking on the no-fly zone and on this issue of closing the skies, we have asked at the level of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, at the level of the government, at the level of president. We've called upon everyone, and we were expecting the support in this aspect. And when we understood that it's difficult and there is no joint understanding among members of different organizations or members of the alliance is not there, then we've started to suggest an alternative, like give us another opportunity. And then we've started to use more aggressive tactics. We're saying that since you're unable to protect us, then give us something that we could be using to protect ourselves. Give us aircrafts, any Soviet, European, United States, it doesn't care. Anything that would be able to fly, anything that would be able to allow us to save and to defend our citizens. Let us use this only on our territory so that you wouldn't be afraid that we would be either willing or trying to attack their own territories. We have not received an answer that I think our people were supposed to receive.
President Zelenskyy, you have been asking for weapons. President Joe Biden approved a $100 million transfer of Javelin anti-armor missiles. They are giving you drones. The UK is giving you anti-tank and high-explosive missiles. Germany is giving you some tanks. If you are getting all these weapons and these heavy weapons, are you, President Zelenskyy, preparing for a longer war with Russia, with all these Western weapons?
I think when any of the world leaders are not transferring us weapons, now that may delay the end of the war, because we're not willing to surrender. Without the heavy weapons, this war would be a longer process. So we would be simply repelling their attacks, and they might try once again after repairing their equipment, after mobilizing more and more people, and then we'll be repelling more and more attacks, we'll be liberating more and more cities. So our country, without these heavy weapons that you've mentioned, that would mean that we would have a longer war. If we would have all the weapons that you've mentioned, and it's important to mention that different countries are approving the allocation of certain weapons. I'm grateful for what we are receiving, but you have to understand, we understand that we have weapons when these weapons are supplied already on the territory of Ukraine, when already this weapon is in the armed forces of Ukraine. Before that, it's only a process, it's not the result. So on many weapons that you've mentioned, we are in the process of having them transferred to Ukraine, but you're not able to fight in the process. You can be powerful when you have these weapons, when you are having those weapons on the territory of Ukraine. So if the world would like to end this war, then you would need to swiftly provide us with these weapons. And when we will have these weapons on our territory, then we would be powerful enough. We're not willing to capture any single city or territory or any person in the Russian Federation. We're not willing to have that. We are fighting for our land. So if these weapons will be supplied to Ukraine swiftly, then we would be able to press the enemy outside of our territory, and that's all. Because we're not seeking any continuation, we only want to have what is ours.
So you're saying that you're not going to use the weapons to strike inside Russian territory, because there was a strike in Belgorod in an oil facility in Russian territory. Will these weapons make you attack places, positions inside Russia?
Ми ніколи не використовували зброю.
We have never used the weapons to attack Russian Federation or to attack anyone else. We have been using weapons to defend against those launching attacks against us. As you know, over the past 8 years, Russia continued to say that in the Donetsk, in the middle of the occupied Ukrainian city, they were trying to say that we've allegedly striked the military and the civilians, but there was not a single evidence except for the video that they've made for themselves. And there were some clumsy videos because you wouldn't be able to understand anything. What is the situation? There was not a single witness found by Russia. And we know how they were deploying weapons, and even the Western partners, they could see that. They keep forgetting that there are satellites, and you can see some facts with your own eyes. And in many cases, Russians were firing at themselves and making videos of that. Once again, I would like to say that Russia has to clearly understand that. The war is on our territory. This is the case. It's not that like 90% of the war is on our territory. No, it's 100%. They came on our land, so they shouldn't say anything, because they came on our territory. They came to use weapons against the citizens, and even against the occupied territories that they've occupied back in 2014 and 2015.
President Zelenskyy, the world is worried, and the reason NATO is not giving you cover, the reason why many countries have not given you those security guarantees yet, is because they are worried about a larger escalation by Russia. Can you rule out Russia going nuclear? You have yourself spoken about World War III. Will there not be a greater risk of World War III if other nations get militarily involved against Russia?
Всі приклади використання
All the examples of using any force, weapons, energy, diplomacy, occupation, all of that is a force, even poisoning of people by Russian Federation, it always occurred when they felt that the other side is weak. It is the weakness, the lack of self-confidence, and that is why Russia, by using its strong position and in some cases that's a synonym, and using the bureaucracy and intelligent procedures, and in some cases the weakness of some Western countries. So Russia has been using that atmosphere as a weapon. Therefore, using any weapons, including nuclear, is not something that we could rule out. But it will happen not because someone will start assisting even more to Ukraine, not because Ukraine would be joining to NATO, even though it would happen, and not because this or that country would be transferring us aircrafts and tanks, and they could do that openly or secretly. I mean, everything is open. Everything will be disclosed sooner or later in the modern informational world. Russia might be using even the nuclear weapons only when they will feel advantage over others, and not what the diplomacy would tells, that if they would be run to a corner, then they would use other weapons. It's too early to say that they've already drawn to an angle. You have to understand that these people, this leadership, and all those who rule the Russian Federation, they all want to leave. They all like this leaving. They are not willing to give away the power because they like it. They are within the comfort zone. And believe me, they're not willing to lose their life, to lose their power, and to lose their trust. The trust of their population. Using nuclear weapons would result in a situation that they will lose everything. So I don't believe in that.
Are sanctions working? Is it better to have no sanctions rather than half-baked sanctions? Europe is still buying oil from Russia. Europe is still discussing a coal ban. Is this step-by-step approach towards sanctions working? Is it better to have no sanctions? Sanctions should be either total sanctions or no sanctions. Don't you agree, Mr. President?
Я хотів би, щоб санкції були саме
Look,
такою.
I would like the sanctions to be as weapons, like something like a nuclear weapon, but the one that is not taking lives of people. I believe these sanctions are modern, state-of-the-art weapons when it goes to an economic isolation of this or that country, which is willing to take the life of any person or attack any country. I think these are powerful steps, but any steps, you know how people are saying, if you took a gun, then just shoot. Otherwise, don't, take this gun. Don't try to threaten people. And the same for the sanctions. And I'm grateful to those countries who have imposed significant sanctions. Now, if you have already taken that weapon in your hands, those sanctions, these state-of-the-art weapons, then fire them, press it, impose all the sanctions, powerful sanctions. Do not pretend as if you are trying to support Ukraine and then, trying to get to not lose all the economic relations with Russia. That's half measures. They will not work. Then these sanctions would be without any significant impact on the Russian Federation. That's the weakness that I've just talked to you. That's the weakness that Russian Federation can feel. Yes. They would feel those steps, and then by feeling that, they would find the ways to circumvent those sanctions. And now Russia is demonstrating the whole world that they are not afraid of this intelligent and smart state-of-the-art weapons. I will circumvent the sanctions. That's what Russia is trying to demonstrate with their steps. And this is something that we have to stop.
You have spoken to Prime Minister Narendra Modi twice. India has provided humanitarian assistance. India has condemned strongly in the UN yesterday what happened in Bucha. We've called for an independent investigation. Is there any way in which India can mediate to help bring the war to an end? You've already spoken about India probably being a security guarantor. Is there any other way in which India can mediate to help bring the war to an end, President Zelenskyy?
Well, I think everything starts with human relations. And the trust in between of the countries is the trust in between the leaders of those countries. And I had two conversations with Prime Minister Modi. I had a telephone conversation, and then we had a meeting in Glasgow at a climate summit. And I thought, and I would be really willing to turn a page in the relationship between our countries and our people. I would like to have those relations powerful and effective. I know that India always had a very significant relationship with Soviet Union, but I'd like to say that India had a relationship with Soviet Union and not Russia. That was Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and other countries that were part of the Soviet Union. And there was always a human relationship. There was always clear and understandable relationship. Our people were sharing experience. They've opened businesses. The Indian students were always graduating from Ukrainian higher educational institutions. Now we understand this relationship. I'm sure India have seen when we've assisted in the evacuation of many citizens of India. I think all of that is important. I think our relationship are very clear. I know that it's very difficult to have this sort of balance in between of the Ukraine and Russia for India. I understand that is the choice for the leader to be made, and he's not willing to lose any relations while in the same time condemning the aggression of Russia and supporting Ukraine. But I would like to say that there are some decisive aspects and decisive times when the wisdom, sometimes the wisdom is not the only solution, because wisdom well, it's very difficult because it's not only your state, it's not only about the balance between the belligerent parties. The wisdom is to see what's going to happen in future. And should we look at that, the whole world is condemning Russian Federation, and they will not forget Russian Federation. I'm grateful for the humanitarian assistance and diplomatic assistance from the Prime Minister. And still, I would really like for him to think of becoming one of the security guarantors for Ukraine. But in this case, there would be no balance. Then you would need to have not only the wisdom, but an open position, because that would be security guarantees for Ukraine. And so if Russia would violate that agreement, now those security guarantors would be against Russian Federation and against its aggression. That's why I would like to have special relationship between our people, between our authorities, because I think we share the same values in between of our people, because the values, they are internal, they are clearly understandable. The peace, the families, the children, and when our children are being killed, then I'm sure that it's very hard for the people of India to watch this, because it's painful for us, and just the same as for every ordinary Indian. And if India could share this pain, well, with Ukraine for the future, that would help our joint history.
A last question. You have said that a post-war Ukraine will become a big Israel with its own face. As I close this interview, could you tell us what a post-war Ukraine will be like? What is your vision for the future of Ukraine, President Zelenskyy?
Well, we are defending the freedom and democracy, and you, as the representatives of the largest democracy in the world, have a clear understanding about this. Those values that we are defending, that's inside every single of us, and all of them will remain. So our liberal relations to the society and liberal relations to the people, to neighbors, to those partners who are supporting us, will all remain. But from the standpoint of security, we will have a significant revision. A security in everything, security starting from the children in our family and our households and our preparation for that, security inside the cultural sides, security on the stadiums, security on any of the mass events. It's all about security and training of our population, and it happens so because we have a neighbor like that. So our population will definitely be aware how to fight, and they will have this special knowledge. We will do everything so that every single person would not be afraid of this or that situation. If the enemy would come to Ukraine, then he would come to your apartment. So you should not run away. You should take some steps in response in order to protect yourself. And from our experience, if you will defend your house, your apartment, then you will defend your borough or district, then you will defend your city and the whole Ukraine.
Well, absolutely agree with you. The world will change after this. We hope the war comes to a close. I wish you personally safety, and we stand with the people of Ukraine. Thank you very much, President Zelenskyy, for joining me. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for the time that you've allocated, and the people who watched us. Thank you for this time, for our nation of Ukraine. Thank you.